The alien emperor's chambers were vast and filled with strange, glowing lights that seemed to float in the air. Walls shimmered with colors that no human had names for, and the floor was smooth, reflecting everything like a calm pool of water. The emperor lay on his golden bed, perfectly still, pretending to sleep. His long robes covered his body and his face was calm, almost peaceful, though behind closed eyes, his mind was sharp and alert. He wanted to see the truth about humans, especially the young girl who served his household. He had heard many stories about human cleverness, bravery, and spirit, but he had never seen it himself. Today he would test it. Lena, the human maid's daughter, had just entered the grand palace with a small basket of cleaning cloths. She was 12 years old, small for her age, but her eyes were bright and full of curiosity. She had heard of the emperor, of course, but she had never seen him up close. Her mother had warned her to be careful, to follow the rules exactly, and to never touch anything important. But Lena had her own thoughts. She wanted to do her job well and quietly. She had been trained to observe and notice even the smallest details. Today she would not only clean the emperor's room but also make sure everything was just right. She stepped into the room softly, careful not to make a sound. The glowing lights made the shadows dance on the floor. She looked around in awe. Everything was enormous, alien, and beautiful. The bed on which the emperor lay was so high that she had to stand on her toes to reach the lower edges of the sheets. She noticed the patterns embroidered in gold and silver on his robe. They were strange and complicated, with shapes she had never seen before. They looked important, delicate, and fragile. She took a deep breath and touched the threads gently, adjusting a few that had come loose. As she moved, she hummed softly, a tune her mother had taught her. It was a human tune, simple and kind, meant to bring calm. She dusted the glowing lights carefully, one by one. Some floated freely in the air and some were attached to the walls, changing colors slowly. She did not rush. Every movement was slow, deliberate, and precise. She did not step on the reflections on the floor. She knew they could scratch or fade if touched. She wanted everything to be perfect for the emperor, even though he was pretending to sleep. The emperor's eyes, hidden behind his eyelids, followed every movement. He expected her to be scared, to hide, to make mistakes. Many humans would have been nervous in such a strange and large room, with so many rules they did not understand. Many would have been timid or careless. But Lena was different. She moved confidently. She did not seem afraid. She adjusted a loose decoration on the wall and polished it until it shined. Then she turned to the bed and noticed a small stain on the corner of the sheet. Without hesitation, she gently wiped it clean. The emperor felt a strange sensation he had never felt before. It was not fear, not anger, not amusement. It was surprise. This child, this human girl, was acting with thoughtfulness, intelligence, and care. She was following her own ideas but also respecting the emperor. She was brave enough to do what was right without needing instructions, yet careful enough to avoid any harm. He had tested many humans before but none had done something like this. He had expected small mistakes, maybe clumsy actions, maybe even hesitation. But Lena did everything perfectly. She walked to a large window, noticing the thick glass was dusty. She looked outside and saw the bright sky, the strange alien city stretching far beyond the palace. She opened the window slightly, letting fresh air enter. The curtains moved gently and the room felt alive. She smiled softly, thinking the emperor must enjoy the clean air. She did not know he was awake in his mind. She thought she was alone, but in reality, every action was being observed, every choice silently judged. Then she noticed a small golden insignia on the bedside table. It was shiny but slightly crooked. She picked it up carefully and adjusted it so it sat perfectly. She looked at the emperor and whispered softly, "There. Everything is as it should be." Her voice was calm, clear, and kind. She had no fear, yet she spoke with respect. The emperor could not move, could not breathe normally. His mind was frozen with amazement. He had never expected such thoughtfulness from a human, especially a child. Lena finished dusting the last of the floating lights and turned to leave. She bowed slightly as her mother had taught her, then paused and said, "Rest well, sir. You have worked so hard. Even emperors need rest." Her words were small but full of meaning. She left the room with a gentle step, closing the door softly behind her. The emperor remained still for a long moment after she left. His mind was racing. He had pretended to sleep to test her, expecting fear or carelessness. Instead, he had found courage, intelligence, and respect, all in one small human child. He could not believe it. He had underestimated humans again, as he often did. But this time he had witnessed something extraordinary. Even in the smallest human, greatness could appear. He finally opened his eyes, not revealing them fully, still pretending to rest. But inside he smiled. Today the test had not been about rules or obedience. It had been about heart, mind, and courage. And Lena, the human maid's daughter, had passed in a way no human ever had. He knew deep inside that he would remember this child for a long time. For the first time, the Emperor realized that humans were not weak, not simple, not easy to judge. Even the smallest among them could surprise an alien emperor and remind him why humans were always special. Today, a human had done what no one had expected. And he would never forget it. Lena stepped into the hallway outside the Emperor's chambers, her small hands carrying the basket of cleaning cloths. She paused for a moment and looked back at the door. Inside, the Emperor was still pretending to sleep, though she did not know it. She had no fear, only curiosity. The palace was huge, and the rooms were filled with strange objects she had never seen before. Each one seemed important, delicate, and in need of care. She moved carefully, thinking about what needed attention first. She began with the shelves along the walls. They were stacked with books, crystals, and small glowing devices. Lena noticed that some of the books were crooked, their edges sticking out. She straightened them gently, pressing each one into place. Some of the crystals were dusty, so she took her soft cloth and polished them until they gleamed. She paused occasionally to hum softly, the tune simple and calming. It floated through the air like a small ribbon, softening the glowing lights around her. Next, she walked to the Emperor's desk. It was covered in papers, maps, and strange tools. She picked up a small circular object that looked important. It was cold and smooth in her hand, and she studied it for a moment. It seemed out of place, so she carefully returned it to its spot. Then she noticed a faint mark on one of the maps. Without thinking, she gently wiped it clean. She did not know if it was important or not, but she felt it would be better neat. Each small action she took was quiet, careful, and thoughtful. The Emperor's eyes followed her, though he remained still on the bed. He expected humans to be timid, nervous, or clumsy. Many servants would have rushed, dropped something, or been too afraid to touch anything. But Lena moved with confidence and precision. She thought for herself and acted on what was right. The Emperor felt a strange feeling, a mixture of surprise and admiration. She was only a child, yet she had a skill and awareness that even adults might lack. Lena approached a large alien sculpture near the center of the room. It was tall, made of shining metal with sharp angles and floating pieces. She noticed that one part of it was loose. She carefully adjusted it, holding it steady with her hands while securing it in place. It did not wobble anymore. She smiled quietly to herself, pleased that she had done something useful. No one had ever let her touch anything like this before. She had to think and act carefully. One wrong move could have caused a problem. Then she saw a small, glowing orb on the floor. It hovered slightly above the ground, spinning slowly. She remembered the lessons her mother had taught her about being careful with unknown objects. Instead of touching it directly, she used her cloth to clean the base. The orb glowed brighter as the dust disappeared. She stood back and admired her work. She felt proud, but more than that, she felt respect for the room and the Emperor. Each action was simple, but each carried thoughtfulness. Suddenly, a soft breeze from the open window ruffled her hair. Lena glanced toward the window and saw that the curtains had become tangled in a corner. Without hesitation, she untangled them, letting the curtains fall gently. The sunlight streamed into the room, illuminating the floor and making the glowing lights shimmer more beautifully. She smiled softly, thinking the Emperor might enjoy this. She did not know he was awake in his mind, watching and judging her quietly. She moved to the corner of the room where a small, broken brush lay on the floor. It seemed useless, abandoned. Lena picked it up, brushed off the dust, and set it neatly on the table. Even small things mattered. She believed that care and attention, no matter how minor, made a difference. She whispered softly, "Everything should be right, even the little things." The Emperor felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never seen a human act with such intelligence and kindness combined. Then she noticed the Emperor's slippers, slightly out of place near the bed. She picked them up carefully and set them perfectly aligned by his robe. Each action she took was deliberate, thoughtful, and independent. She did not ask for permission, yet she acted with respect. She cleaned a small spill on the floor near the bed, careful not to step in it. Every small choice she made was guided by her own understanding of right and wrong. The Emperor could no longer remain calm. His eyes, though still closed, widened in astonishment. This child, this human girl, had not only cleaned the room but had also thought about the comfort, safety, and order of everything around her. She had acted with courage, skill, and care in ways he could hardly believe. His mind raced. He had expected fear, hesitation, maybe even clumsiness. Instead, he saw intelligence, initiative, and heart. Lena was teaching him a lesson without even knowing it. Finally, Lena paused in the center of the room. She looked around, ensuring everything was as it should be. She whispered softly, "All done. The room is ready." Her voice was small yet confident. She picked up her basket and started to leave. The Emperor remained still, frozen with admiration. He realized he had underestimated humans again. Even a small child could show wisdom, courage, and respect in a way no alien had expected. As she stepped toward the door, she turned and gave a small bow, a sign of respect. "Rest well, sir. I hope you enjoy your day," she said softly. The Emperor's mind could hardly process her words. He had pretended to sleep to test her, expecting fear or mistakes. Instead, he had found thoughtfulness, bravery, and intelligence. Lena, a simple human girl, had acted with such skill and heart that he could hardly believe his eyes. He finally opened his eyes, letting them glow faintly, still pretending to rest. Inside he smiled. Today the test had shown something extraordinary. Lena had proved that even humans, even children, could possess wisdom, courage, and care far beyond what he had imagined. For the first time, the Emperor understood that greatness could appear in the smallest form, and sometimes the most unlikely beings could surprise even an alien emperor. He lay still a moment longer, thinking about what he had witnessed. Lena had done more than clean a room. She had shown intelligence, independence, and respect, all in one quiet, careful, and brave human girl. Today the Emperor had learned that humans were not to be judged by size, age, or appearance. Even the smallest among them could inspire awe. Lena had done it without knowing, and he would never forget her. The Emperor continued to lie still on his golden bed, though his mind was alive with thought. He had watched Lena move through the room, correcting small problems, cleaning, adjusting, and caring for everything around her. Each action seemed ordinary, yet each revealed something extraordinary about her character. He had expected hesitation, mistakes, or fear. Instead, she had moved with purpose, intelligence, and courage. Now he wanted to see more. He wanted to test her further, not with fear or danger, but with a challenge to her judgment. From his hidden position, he allowed a small object to fall near Lena's feet. It was a delicate, crystal container, filled with a faintly glowing liquid. The guards had warned that no human should touch it. Many would have panicked, dropped it, or ignored it entirely. Lena bent down, her eyes widening slightly as she studied the object. For a moment she hesitated. Then she remembered what she had learned from her mother. Think first, act with care, and respect what belongs to others. She reached out carefully and held the container, steadying it in her small hands. She studied it, turning it gently to see if anything was wrong. She noticed a small crack near the base. She did not panic. Instead, she placed it on the nearest flat surface, where it could not fall, and cleaned around it. Then she continued her work, polishing the room, dusting the shelves, and adjusting the fabrics. The Emperor watched silently, his eyes widening in astonishment. Next, he decided to test her courage. A low, soft sound echoed in the room, a strange vibration from the palace walls. Lena paused and looked around. Many humans might have been frightened by the unfamiliar noise, but she stepped forward instead. She approached the source, moving carefully and observing the strange walls. Her small hands touched the surface, feeling for what might be wrong. She did not scream, run, or hide. She simply studied and adjusted a small panel, which stopped the vibration. The Emperor's mind raced. He realized that Lena's intelligence was more than skill or cleverness. It was awareness, problem-solving, and thoughtfulness combined. She had not just cleaned or polished objects. She had observed, understood, and acted in ways that were careful and right. Her mind was active, her heart pure, and her courage quiet but steady. She did not need instructions. She acted on her own judgment, guided by respect and understanding. The Emperor allowed another test. A small, glowing device hovered near the ceiling. It pulsed faintly, like it was waiting for someone to notice. Lena looked up. Many humans might have ignored it, thinking it was dangerous or unimportant. But she raised a small ladder, climbed carefully, and adjusted the device to its proper position. Her movements were precise and careful. She did not rush or panic. The Emperor could hardly believe what he was seeing. Each small act Lena performed revealed something new. She did not fear the unknown. She thought, reasoned, and acted responsibly. She did not need to be told what to do. She was not following instructions blindly. She was learning, observing, and understanding. And she was acting with respect, not just for the Emperor but for the room, for the objects, and for herself. The Emperor felt a strange warmth inside him. He had never imagined a human could combine courage, intelligence, and respect in such a natural way. Lena paused in the center of the room. She looked at the bed where the Emperor lay. She had no idea he was awake. She adjusted the covers, making sure they were smooth. She noticed a small thread on his robe and fixed it carefully. She whispered softly, "Everything should be perfect." Her voice was calm, respectful, and confident. The Emperor's mind froze in awe. He had intended to test her, expecting small mistakes, hesitance, or fear. Instead, she had shown judgment, kindness, courage, and intelligence, all in one small human child. The Emperor allowed himself to study her more closely. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity and focus. Her movements were calm, precise, and thoughtful. Her hands were steady, her posture confident. Even when faced with unfamiliar objects, she did not panic. She observed, reasoned, and acted. He realized that humans were not weak, timid, or careless. Even children could demonstrate insight, intelligence, and courage far beyond what he had imagined. Lena had done more than clean or follow rules. She had revealed the strength of her character. Finally, Lena placed the last object in its proper place and stood quietly. She looked around the room, satisfied that everything was perfect. She bowed slightly to the bed as her mother had taught her, then whispered, "I hope everything is as it should be." The Emperor felt a surge of admiration he had never experienced before. He had tested humans many times, but none had ever shown such thoughtfulness, independence, and courage combined. Lena had passed every silent test he had set, not by chance but by intelligence and heart. He could no longer pretend to be asleep. Slowly he opened his eyes. The room felt different now, quiet and peaceful, but alive with the energy Lena had left behind. The Emperor could not help but smile. He had intended to test her, but in truth, he had been tested himself. Lena, the human maid's daughter, had revealed that humans were clever, brave, and honorable. Even a small child could act in ways that inspired awe and respect. He realized that he had underestimated humans once again. For the first time, the Emperor understood that greatness could appear anywhere. It did not matter how small or young a human was. Even the simplest, smallest humans could possess courage, intelligence, and a heart that surpassed expectation. Lena had done it all without fear, without instruction, and without seeking recognition. She had acted for what was right, guided by her own mind and her own heart. The Emperor was frozen not by fear but by awe. He remained still for a long moment, studying her quiet, thoughtful presence. The tests were over, yet he knew he would remember this child for a long time. Lena had proven that even in the smallest humans, greatness could appear. And he understood something important. Humans, no matter their size or age, could inspire and surprise in ways that no alien emperor could have imagined. Lena had passed his test, not because she had done what he expected, but because she had acted in ways he could not have predicted. The emperor remained on his golden bed, his glowing eyes wide open in astonishment. He could not believe what he had just witnessed. Lena, the human maid's daughter, had moved through his chambers with intelligence, care, and courage unlike any human he had ever known. Every small action she had taken, from adjusting the glowing objects to polishing the delicate surfaces, had revealed her character. She had shown thoughtfulness, awareness, and bravery in ways that left him completely unprepared. He had intended to test her, expecting mistakes, hesitation, or fear. Instead, he found something extraordinary. Lena, unaware of the emperor's gaze, continued to move quietly around the room. She checked a small, shining device on a table near the window. It flickered softly, pulsing like a heartbeat, and she noticed a loose wire. Many humans might have panicked or ignored it, but Lena knelt carefully and straightened the wire, making sure it did not spark or fall. Her hands were steady, her mind focused. She did not know that her every action was being observed by one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The Emperor's heart, though alien, felt a strange warmth. He had seen many humans, but none had ever acted with such combination of intelligence, courage, and kindness. Lena was small, simple in appearance, and yet her actions spoke of wisdom far beyond her age. She had faced the unknown without fear, made decisions on her own, and respected the environment around her. The Emperor had expected fear or hesitation, but he found something he had never imagined: awe-inspiring human spirit in a child. He allowed himself to lean slightly forward on the bed, still pretending to rest. He wanted to see her reaction, to watch how she handled what she did not understand. Lena turned her attention to a golden mirror standing in the corner. It reflected the glowing lights and her own image. She noticed that the mirror was dusty at the edges. Without hesitation, she took her soft cloth and polished it until it gleamed perfectly. Then she stepped back, observing her own reflection and the room, ensuring everything was orderly. Her movements were calm, precise, and confident. The Emperor felt a sudden rush of admiration. He realized that Lena's actions were not just obedience or carefulness, they were judgment, understanding, and creativity. She had thought about the objects, the room, and the space in ways he had not expected. Even when faced with the unfamiliar or strange, she had acted with intelligence, courage, and respect. He had intended to test her, but it was he who had been tested. Her mind, her heart, and her courage had revealed something he could not ignore. To push the test further, the Emperor let a small, faintly glowing orb hover near Lena's feet. Many humans would have stepped back in fear. Some might have dropped it or run away. Lena, however, knelt down and studied the orb carefully. She noticed a tiny mark on its surface. Without panic, she carefully lifted it and placed it on a nearby shelf where it could float safely. Each movement was deliberate and careful. The Emperor's mind froze in amazement. He could not believe the combination of intelligence, courage, and care in one human child. As Lena moved around the room, she whispered softly to herself, organizing and adjusting. She straightened a curtain, polished a small alien sculpture, and aligned the glowing devices. Each act was simple but thoughtful. Each act revealed a quality the Emperor had not expected. He realized that humans could possess great skill and insight in the smallest, simplest forms. Lena had done more than clean and organize. She had demonstrated judgment, understanding, and bravery, all without fear or hesitation. Then she approached the Emperor's bed again. She noticed a loose corner of his robe and carefully adjusted it. She smoothed the covers, making sure they lay perfectly. She glanced down at the slippers she had aligned earlier and whispered softly, "Everything should be perfect." Her voice was quiet, respectful, and kind. The Emperor felt his mind stop for a moment. He had intended to remain hidden and unseen, but her words and actions froze him in awe. He had never expected a human child to possess such courage, skill, and wisdom. The Emperor's body remained still, but inside, his mind raced. Lena had passed every silent test he had designed, not by chance, but through intelligence and heart. She had acted with initiative, solved problems carefully, and respected her surroundings. She had made choices that revealed her understanding of right and wrong. And she had done all this without fear, without hesitation, and without seeking recognition. The Emperor could hardly comprehend it. For a long moment, the room was silent except for the soft hum of Lena's voice and the faint glow of the lights. The Emperor remained frozen in awe, realizing that he had underestimated humans once again. Even the smallest, youngest among them could possess courage, intelligence, and insight far beyond expectation. Lena had acted with freedom, independence, and respect, qualities that no ruler, no alien could have forced. She had shown greatness in a way that could not be ignored. Finally, Lena stepped back and observed the room. She smiled softly, feeling satisfied that everything was perfect. She did not know that the Emperor had been awake all along, watching her, judging her, and feeling astonishment. She gave a small bow as she had been taught and whispered, "I hope everything is as it should be." The Emperor remained frozen for a few more moments, his mind still absorbing the truth he had just witnessed. He realized that Lena had done more than complete a task. She had revealed the spirit of humanity itself. Even a child, small and seemingly simple, could act with wisdom, courage, and integrity that inspired awe. He understood that humans could not be measured by their size, age, or appearance. Even in the smallest human, greatness could appear. And today Lena had proven it, not through words but through action. The Emperor finally allowed himself to move slightly, a faint smile appearing on his face. His glowing eyes, once wide with astonishment, softened with admiration. Lena had frozen him, not with fear but with the power of her courage, intelligence, and heart. He would remember this day forever. This human child had shown him that even the smallest beings could teach lessons far beyond their years. He remained on the bed, still pretending to sleep, but inside he knew he had witnessed something extraordinary. Lena had passed every test and in doing so had shown the true power of the human spirit. Lena stepped lightly from the Emperor's chamber, her small hands holding the basket of cloths carefully. The room was quiet now, perfectly arranged, each object in its proper place. She had not known that the Emperor had been awake all along, watching her, judging her, and learning from her every action. She had acted with care, intelligence, and courage, and now she felt satisfied that her work was complete. She smiled softly, thinking of her mother's words, "Do your best even when no one is watching." The Emperor remained on his bed for a long moment, still pretending to rest, though inside his mind was racing. He could not stop thinking about the human girl who had entered his life so quietly, yet had done something so remarkable. She had not only cleaned his chamber but had observed, understood, and acted with thoughtfulness and courage. Every small action had revealed her intelligence, independence, and respect. Even as he had tested her, it was she who had tested him, showing him the strength and wisdom humans could possess. He called softly to his guards, instructing them to stand aside and allow the girl to remain near the palace for a moment. Lena turned, curious, and saw the Emperor's glowing eyes open, soft and warm, no longer pretending. She froze slightly, unsure if she had done something wrong. She lowered her eyes respectfully and waited quietly. The Emperor spoke, his voice calm but carrying a weight that made Lena's heart beat faster. "You are Lena, the human maid's daughter, are you not?" Lena nodded, unsure what to say. She had been trained to answer honestly, so she said, "Yes, sir." The Emperor's gaze studied her carefully, but there was no anger, no disappointment, only admiration. "You have done more than any human I have ever observed," he continued. "Every action you took, every choice you made revealed thoughtfulness, courage, and intelligence. You did not act from fear. You did not wait for instructions. You observed, judged, and acted as you thought right. For that I respect you." Lena's eyes widened. She had never expected to hear words like this from an alien emperor. She had only wanted to do her work well. The Emperor raised his hand slightly, gesturing to the room. "Look around. Every detail, every object has been attended to by your hands. You have shown care for things that many adults would ignore, courage when faced with the unfamiliar, and respect for both your environment and those who dwell within it. That is remarkable." Lena blushed and lowered her gaze, shy but proud. She had acted with thought and care, and now the Emperor himself acknowledged it. He leaned slightly forward on his bed, his glowing eyes softening further. "I have tested many humans but none have passed as you have. You have demonstrated qualities I once believed impossible in such a small being. Even the smallest humans can carry wisdom, courage, and insight beyond expectation. You have proven that greatness does not come from size or strength, but from mind, heart, and spirit." Lena could not believe what she was hearing. She had always been taught that humans were weak in comparison to alien rulers, yet here she was being praised for her courage, intelligence, and independence. The Emperor motioned for his guards to leave the room. No one is to disturb her. No one is to underestimate her. Today, Lena has shown us all what humans are capable of. Lena stepped forward slightly, unsure if she should speak. The Emperor smiled faintly, encouraging her. She said softly, "I only did what I thought was right, sir." The Emperor's smile widened. "That is exactly why you succeeded. You acted not for reward, not for recognition, but because it was right. That is the mark of true wisdom and courage. From this day, you will have a place in my household, not only as a maid but as an observer, a helper, and a guide. Your mind and heart are valuable, and they will be respected." Lena's eyes shone with awe. She could hardly believe her words. She had entered the palace as a simple maid's daughter, and now the Emperor himself was honoring her in a way she had never imagined. Over the following days, Lena continued her work in the palace, but things had changed. The Emperor noticed every small detail she adjusted, every thoughtful action she took. He consulted her quietly on arrangements, allowing her insight to guide certain decisions. He had once believed humans were fragile and simple, but Lena had shown him the opposite. Even a child, small and seemingly ordinary, could possess strength, intelligence, and heart that rivaled the greatest of beings. The Emperor often reflected on that day. He had pretended to sleep to test Lena, expecting fear or mistakes. Instead, he found courage, intelligence, and respect. He had frozen in awe, amazed by the actions of a single human child. He realized that humans should never be underestimated. They had the power to surprise, to inspire, and to teach lessons that even an alien emperor could learn from. Lena, too, learned from the experience. She understood that courage and intelligence were not measured by size or strength, but by action, thought, and heart. She felt proud, yet humble, knowing that even small humans could make a difference. She continued to act with care, thought, and kindness, earning trust and respect from the palace and its inhabitants. In the end, the Emperor smiled quietly to himself. He had witnessed something extraordinary, a human child showing wisdom, courage, and heart in ways he had never imagined. Lena's actions had frozen him not with fear but with awe. She had proven that humans, no matter how small or young, could inspire greatness, teach lessons, and leave a lasting impression. From that day forward, Lena was no longer just the maid's daughter. She was a symbol of the human spirit, a reminder to the emperor and all in his palace that greatness often comes in unexpected forms. The palace remained quiet, filled with light and order, yet alive with the memory of what had transpired. The emperor had learned a lesson he would never forget: to respect humans, to value their courage, and to honor their intelligence. Lena, the human maid's daughter, had earned a place not just in the palace, but in the history of the emperor's heart, a small human who had done something truly remarkable.